Science time. We're going to talk today about common ancestry. Common ancestry. We're going to start with this with an example. I'm going to give you a little caveat first, like that I've already given you in real life, but I'm going to give the video a caveat so that when you watch this, you can remember that I had said this, so that you don't have to get out your pitchfork. We're going to do a little example, and then we're going to talk about how this relates to species in general. I think this is some of the coolest stuff in science, and I think, to me, the first part of my caveat is that, to me, this makes life and being a human being more robust and interesting and cooler to know about this. The caveat is that, as we said before, I'm going to keep this kind of vague so that everyone can be happy. We all deserve to be happy. The evidence suggests common ancestry. There is direct evidence for this, right? There is fossil evidence that we kind of count as, maybe halfway between direct and indirect evidence. But there is fossil evidence that organisms share a common ancestor. I had just got done telling you, and I find this to be true, whatever you incorporate into what I'm going to call a belief system, right? It doesn't have to be based strictly on this. There are things in the universe and in your life that we don't consider to be part of science because we can't explain them. And there's no reason that this and what we call evolution cannot mesh very well with any kind of belief system that you came into this room with. You see what I'm saying? If you choose that, and this is not something that I'm forcing upon you, and it's not something that we have to talk about at great length, I don't think. But you should be aware that I find that there isn't a problem combining what the evidence suggests with a personal and philosophical belief system. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yes. Does anyone want a further explanation about this? Thus ends the caveat. Let's move on. Okay, so the first example we're going to talk about is, here's you. This is what you all look like to me. So. Oh wait. Sorry, it's Justice. So.
No. Why?
Okay. Anyway, there's Justin. That's what I'm going to call him. We'll just call him Justin because he doesn't have glasses. Okay, so here's Justice. Justice, I'm aware that Justice has a brother.
Yeah.
Hayes. Let's draw Hayes. Hayes is a little bit taller, and he's got his arms out. You know Hayes with his arms out like this all the time. And he's got his. Now that I've drawn a shirt on Hayes, it makes it seem like Justice is naked. But whatever. These guys, what is the relationship between them?
They hate each other.
No. They're brothers. That's how I've always pronounced that word. That's how I'm always going to pronounce it. Sometimes I abbreviate it bra. They're bras. Okay, and they have, as you said, a common ancestor, right? They have.
Dad and dad. My shirt is my hair.
They have these other people.
Why is my mom so short? Why is my dad shorter?
Okay, no, it's perspective. They're far away. This is art. This is art. Okay, no, they have common ancestors, right? They came from the same ancestor. Are these the same, they are the same species, but are these the same organism? No. But they came from a set of common ancestors, right?
Right.
They also have, you have a cousin, right, Justice?
Yeah.
What's the cousin's name?
Jackson.
How can I draw Jackson? No, just say one of them.
Well, he's about my height and he's 9 years old.
Okay, his height. What length of hair does he have?
Pretty short hair.
Does he have clothes? Like Hayes, or is he naked all the time?
Does he have clothes? Yeah.
Okay.
I would hope so.
There, that's clothes.
He's a hot dog.
Just wears a single
You made him a hot dog.
He wears a hot dog costume everywhere he goes. Okay.
Ketchup on his hair.
This thing is still related to these, right? They have a common ancestor. Because there's something here. I'm sure he has parents or whatever, but he has a common ancestor with Hayes and Justice, and it is their grandparents who are even farther away and therefore shorter. That's
scribble.
FYI, no one debates this. Everyone's like, "Oh yeah, I got a common ancestor with my sister." Of course you do. You weren't present at the birth of that person. Maybe you were, but you certainly were present at your own birth. You certainly were present at your own birth, but you don't remember it. But there's no debate that the common ancestry is there.
Mr. Kai.
The hypothetical common ancestry comes in when we take this way back, millions of years. So we extend this principle up. I should have drawn it way down here, but we extend this principle up through the millennia, right? Through millions of years. And in this way, we find that all human beings are related. So write that down first. Common ancestry states that all human beings are related to a common ancestor.
What's the scribble?
The scribble here represents Hot Dog's mommy. I don't know if he has mom and dad or whatever. We're not going to get into it. The progenitor of Hot Dog is this scribble. I assume it's a male and female parent. I don't fully know because I don't know the practices of those people. I don't care. But if we take this back millions of years, all human beings have a common ancestor. Once again, as far as I'm aware, there's very little debate about this. Right? You know about Adam and Eve. There's very little debate about human beings having a common ancestor. Where the debate comes in is this next bit. If we take it back billions of years.
Oh, that's pretty far.
That's pretty far. All what?
Monkey.
No. All what?
Monkey.
Human.
We already did all humans.
All living.
All living things. Let's take it. Yeah, all living things have a common ancestor. This is where there is debate. Well, I don't even like to use that word. This is where there is some consternation among some folks, and that's fine. And I'm not telling you which side of that specific set of consternation you ought to fall on. I don't like using the word believe even. And that's not what we're talking about. What I'm talking about is that the evidence suggests that this is true. All living things have a common ancestor. And what we're going to talk about today is what specific evidence suggests that this is true. What does all life have in common? First of all, what did Justice and Hayes have in common? Let's go back to the minute.
Mother and father.
They do, but they have some traits in common as well, right? They both have faces. Lots of other people have faces too. But for instance, my sister and I have the same or a similarly shaped nose. We have similarly colored eyes. We have similarly colored hair when hers isn't dyed. We have, other than that she's female and I'm male, we have similar body structures, right? Even our children look similar to one another. The children, she has a child, I have a child. Those children, they're cousins, and they look similar to each other. They have similar traits. Similar traits because of these two, right? Similar traits because of these two. We go back a ways. What similar traits do you have with, say, with the great apes or with monkeys? What similar traits do you have with those things?
We're hairy.
No, listen. That you have with those things that you don't have with other organisms. Opposable thumbs, right? What else? Hayden's trying to be smart when he says hairy, but we do have similar patterns of hair. You ever see a hairy dude?
Yeah.
The pattern of hair that a hairy dude has got, especially like on his face, chest, back, arms, pretty similar to the hair pattern found on a chimpanzee, for instance. So if you want to call a hairy dude a chimp, whatever. Listen, shh, please calm down. Going a little further back, what common traits do all mammals share? Mammals.
Milk.
Okay, yeah, milk production, the mammary glands. What else do all mammals share?
They give birth, they give life.
Give birth generally, except for the marsupials and the monotremes. They give birth to live animals that are placental. Yep, they all have fur, right? And that's something that no other organism has. Sometimes you might see a spider that looks furry, but that's not really fur. Sometimes you see a bird that looks almost furry, that's not really fur.
Fish?
Mammals have fur. Fish don't have fur. What? Okay, now let's go back a little further. Listen. Let's go back a little further. What are some traits that all vertebrates share? You know what vertebrates are? What traits do all vertebrates have? Spine. We have an endoskeleton, right? We have musculature.
Jaw.
Most, not all, but most have jaws, and there's a difference among those.
Have jaws.
Okay, going back a little further from vertebrates, what traits do all animals share, but not all life shares?
Live.
Feet.
Well, how are animals different from the other kinds of organisms?
We can eat, we can walk, except when you can't walk.
You're right, Jaden, but that's too vague. Everyone else is being too specific. Do all animals have a heart?
No.
No. But all animals can do what? What are they called animals for? Not all animals can breathe.
Kill or...
Not all animals can... Well, they're all alive, but that's too big again. What separates the animals from the plants, do you think? Eating. Yeah, we get our energy from a secondary source. We can't produce our own food like the plants can. And there aren't just plants and animals. Also, at one stage of their life, all animals are motile, or all animals are derived from ancestors that are motile, which means they can move on their own, where plants not always, or plants generally can't. And then going back one step further, what traits do all life forms have? Well, let's write these down. We had already told them to you, so you wouldn't seem like you didn't know what you were talking about. Well, what are all the traits that all life has these things?
Reproduction.
Reproduction. Let's get the nicest one out of the way first.
Adaptation.
Adaptation to their environment. Adaptation.
Living.
That's not one.
Oh, we
Cells.
cells.
Cellular. And they all
Poop.
Grow.
Bro. I knew that.
growth. Reproduction, adaptation, cellular, and they all have growth. Okay, all of what I just said to say, how does that all relate to a piece of evidence that suggests that all living things have a common ancestor?
They all do all that kind of stuff.
Because you see, when
They all have similarities, right? They are all similar. Let's look at the picture on page 52. Look at the picture on page 52. If you're on your Chromebook, this is in Exploration 1. It's partway down. It's a picture of bones. We have here... Oh, Colin, I'm going to try to draw this on the board so that when you're watching the video, you don't have to actually have your book in front of you. But let's see what actually happens here. This is just going to be a failure, I can already tell you.
I'd love to see that.
Wow.
Hey, be nice to me.
That's
I
a
was being
black
nice.
hole eyeball.
Black hole.
This is supposed to be a bat,
Oh, yeah,
a bat wing. Hey,
Oh.
this is supposed to be a bat wing.
No.
Oh yeah.
This next one is supposed to be
A bat. A
Dolphin fin. Duke dorsal. Oh.
This is supposed to be
Can't.
the fin of a whale. Sometimes it says dolphin, but
You missed a couple of those there.
Oh,
yeah, I'm doing my best here.
It's alright. Cyrus's dad.
Oh, no, they don't.
It's because my dad left you and your dad beat you, doesn't mean
Hey, stop.
Oh, calm down.
This one is supposed to be the leg of a horse.
Sorry, that bothers me.
That's actually pretty good. That's way better than my drawing,
Hey.
though. I tried to
Driving Texas.
We call these things. I'm trying to do a good job drawing enough digits on all of these. We call these things. Oh, this is supposed to be the leg of a kitty cat. We call these things homologous
You ruined your beautiful picture.
structures.
Structures.
Now it's ruined.
Are they the exact same?
No.
No, but are they similar?
No.
Yeah, we can correlate this bone here, what we call the humerus in all of these things. This bone here is homologous. It's not the exact same in all cases, but it's in the same position. It's made of the same stuff, and it serves the same purpose. You got a humerus.
Woo!
That really hurts. I shouldn't
Haha,
hurt myself.
funny.
You got a humerus, right? That's the bone in your upper arm. What's the job of the bone in your upper arm?
The lift.
To help
Yeah,
you.
to connect the rest of this bits to the rest of your body, right? It's like a little bridge. That's the exact same purpose it serves in all of these things. Has the same purpose, has a similar structure, and it's made of the same stuff. It's called a homologous structure because this prefix homo, as in homosexual, means same. Homosexual is someone who prefers the same sex. Homologous is the same structure, right? The same. Hey, you're listening? It's the same structure in all of these. These next ones, this is radius and ulna.
Yeah.
And all of these mammals, these are all mammals, have that structure. In you, the radius and the ulna, this thing's job is to allow twisting of this limb.
The twisty twist.
For the bat, it might serve a different purpose. Probably for the bat, I would guess it adjusts its elevation control in its wings. For the whale, it probably adjusts the elevation control in its flippers. For the horse, it probably allows it to rotate in and out its hoof, and for the cat, it allows it to rotate in and out its paw. It does the same job. It's made of the same stuff, and that's true of the phalanges, the metacarpals, the carpals. All of this has the same. No, those are in the toes, and we're talking about forelimbs
But
here.
that is a toe on the horse.
Dude, it is.
This is the second piece of evidence that all life shares a common ancestor. When we look at a specific enough group of organisms, they have homologous structures. So we have two pieces of evidence so far. Similar traits, shared among groups. Homologous structures, shared among groups. Our third piece of evidence is embryonic development. I think this is so cool. Write down embryonic development, or I'm going to write down embryonic development.
Do horses have legs or arms?
Horses have both legs and arms, yes. We generally don't call the forelimbs of a quadruped its arms, but it is the same bones as your arms are. Usually in biology we differentiate that the arm has to have some other properties, but the forelimbs of all, we call these things, and you should write this down because this kind of relates both of what we've talked about so far. Before we talk about embryonic development, let's talk about this.
Oh, you raised the hot dog.
No, you raised hot dog.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hot dog. His name's Jackson.
Yeah,
Write this down.
Jack's-
Hey, please stop talking about nonsense.
Jack's-
Hey, stop talking about nonsense. Write this word down. Oh, my marker is dying.
Good job.
Oh, wet.
Did it go?
No.
Break.
Break.
This word tetrapod,
Tetrapod.
this is Greek for four.
Like
Tetra means four, and pod means limbs. It does specifically mean foot in Greek, but we use it to refer to the limbs. Lots of creatures have four limbs. Let's name them all. No, that's a wild task. Let's name all the groups of creatures that have four limbs.
Horses.
Have you got four limbs?
Yeah.
No, I'm
Yeah.
Yeah, you do. 2 arms and 2 legs. 2 plus 2 is 4. What else has 4 limbs?
Ferrets, 21.
Ferrets, horses, all dogs, all of the whats have 4 limbs.
Mammals.
Okay, so these things are tetrapods. Mammals, like you, like the platypus, like the horse, like the tiger, like the cat. All the mammals, the sheep, all the mammals have 4 limbs. What else isn't a mammal has 4 limbs?
Amphibians.
Reptiles. All the reptiles have 4 limbs.
No.
All the amphibians have 4 limbs.
Snakes don't have.
Oh, hold up, that's a good point. Snakes don't have 4 limbs. Snakes, we think, the fossil evidence suggests that snakes are descended from creatures that have 4 limbs, but they have secondarily lost those in order to fill a niche better in their environment. One of the things that a snake can do is slither around in tiny little places in order to get like marmots or prairie dogs or whatever. It can go into the holes, and it has secondarily, that means after its ancestor already had 4 limbs, it lost those so it could fit into holes better, we think. Yes?
Like, because one was probably born with way smaller limbs,
Exactly.
so it was able to hide.
Exactly. I'm going to repeat that for the microphone. Rhett correctly says that probably because of a genetic mutation, some proto-snake was born to parents that both had normal-sized limbs, but it had smaller limbs, and they're like, oh, the poor thing is misshapen. But it actually was better at getting into the holes of its prey, and therefore it was able to reproduce. Its offspring had those small limbs, and so that's how evolution progresses. Anyway, mammals, reptiles, amphibians, what else has... Fish. Fish have 2 pectoral fins, and they have 2 anal fins, which correspond to your legs. What else besides fish? I think at least one more. Birds. Birds have 2 forewings and they have 2 legs.
They have 2 forewings.
All of these things are related to a common ancestor. The tetrapods are all related to a common ancestor. All these things, in addition to having 4 limbs, they all have a spine. All of the vertebrates, no, not all of the vertebrates, many of the vertebrates are in the group tetrapoda, which means they all have 4 limbs. It's a common body design, and that's another piece of evidence. Are there some organisms that don't have 4 limbs? What are some organisms that don't have 4 limbs?
Snakes.
Well, these are snakes. Whales have 4 limbs. Did you say whale?
Spiders.
Spiders have 8 limbs. What else?
Bees.
Insects have 6 limbs. They are related to these critters, but they're not within the group Tetrapoda. And so one thing we can do, what's more closely related? A dude and a crocodile, or a dude and a housefly?
A dude and a crocodile.
The dude and the crocodile because they have the same number of limbs, probably. And in fact, the fossil record shows us that there are evolutionary links between dude and crocodile. There are also evolutionary links way, 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 way back between dude and housefly, but it's further back. And that's one of the things we need to get at, is that all life, right, it branches out into these little things, and then the branches have branches. And then those branches have branches. And so the closer things are related, in the same way, what does this kind of look like?
A tree.
It looks like a what tree?
A world
It
tree.
almost looks like a family tree, like
A
Ancestry.com.
world tree.
This is kind of like the Ancestry.com of all life on Earth. So, in the same way that Ancestry.com might have, here's your daddy, right? Here's you and your, looks like 4 siblings. Who's closer related? You at position A, and your sister at position B, or you at position A, and your
Great.
6th cousin once removed at position C.
See.
Obviously, you and your sister at A and B are more closely related than you and C. In the same way, the further up the tree of life we have to go before we find a common ancestor, this would be like you and a type of bacteria. You're not very closely related because we have to go all the way up before we can find the common ancestor. The common ancestor is just a single-cell organism, probably. Whereas for you and, maybe we put sheep here, sheep. For you and sheep, you're more closely related because we only have to go up to the, in this drawing, which is not true, we only have to go up to the second ancestor, the granddaddy. That's why we sometimes say that the dolphin is a cousin to the killer whale. When we use that term, which is a loose term, but when we use that term, especially in scientific literature, it means that they have a common ancestor, but they're not directly linked to the same thing.
Well, I want to make a family
Yes.
tree now.
So like you and your sister are related because you're parents.
Yep.
You and your cousin are related because you're grandparents. So is that how you get like your first cousin, your second cousin?
Yep, exactly. Your first cousin shares a grandparent with you, your second cousin shares great-grandparents with you, third cousin shares great-great-grandparents, etc., etc., etc. It's thought most people, especially those in the same like ethnic group, are at most probably 4th or 5th cousins to one another. And maybe outside of ethnic groups, probably at most maybe 7th or 8th cousins. It really, you don't have to go very far back before you have a common ancestor with almost anyone.
Can I run
Quickly, no.
Yeah.
Quickly, last thing before we end this video, we have to talk about embryonic development. What is this probably referring to? What is the adjective embryonic probably mean? Referring to what?
Embryo.
Referring to an embryo. I have a son. I was able to see him before he was born in the ultrasound machine. It was really cool. He started out. You're aware how life starts, where you don't have to laugh about it. When the critter is first conceived, what does that look like? It's 2 half cells, right? A spermatozoa and an egg, right? 2 half cells, they combine to form a cell. What we call I think, a zygote. I'm getting a little bit out of my depth. I haven't done biology for a long time. It's a zygote. Then that does what?
It
multiplies.
performs mitosis.
It performs mitosis and it becomes 2 cells. Those 2 cells become 4 cells. Those 4 cells become,
8 cells.
I think 16. I think it's multiplicative like that. Everyone doubles, so yeah, it should be 8. Whatever. Anyway, over time, we can see in the development of an embryo, when it gets past this zygote stage where it's just a pile of cells. Let me try to do that a little better. There we go. That's 8. When it gets past this zygote stage where it's just a little blob, it goes through these cycles that are related to different organisms. The first thing it'll probably develop is when it becomes, when it's quite a few, maybe within the somewhere between a dozen and 100 cells, it becomes kind of cup-shaped. This represents the split between vertebrate life, like all the tetrapods we listed, and invertebrate life. We call them protozomes and deuterozomes, and you'll talk about this later when you get to biology with Mr. O. But protozomes, effectively, this little hole in the cup, in a protozome, this becomes, I believe, and I might be getting this wrong, so don't at me if I get it wrong, but just look it up. This little hole in this cup becomes, in a protozome, the mouth, and in a deuterozome, it becomes the anus. Because basically every animal has a body plan that's effectively this. Every single one. A critter surrounded around a hole. What's the hole in you? It is your what? It's your digestive system. The whole thing, this technically, it counts as your outside. You've got the same cells, the same kind of cells, epithelial cells that make up your skin, make up the lining of your gut tract. what's inside of you, your body considers outside. Like this is its environment. Your esophagus and tummy and guts, small intestine, large intestine, all that stuff is a non-sterile part of your body, right? It contains exterior stuff, usually food, hopefully food and bacteria. But basically in a protosome, this becomes the anus and this becomes the mouth, and in a deuterosome it's flipped. A really cool piece of evidence of this is that when we look at like a grasshopper, its heart is what we call, it's on the dorsal surface, which means it's on its back. Whereas in a vertebrate, the heart is always on the ventral surface, on the front, and that's because this flippage has occurred. Anyway, moving past that, once it gets out of this little cup-shaped, I don't remember exactly what the name of that is, but I'm going to call it an embryo just so that we can move on. When it gets out of this cup-shaped embryo stage, it develops a little bit further into something that looks almost like a little fish. Then that thing gets some legs. These drawings are not going to be good,
Looks
okay?
like a car.
These drawings are not going to be
Big
good.
dome.
That gets legs.
Like
That little, this kind of is like a little amphibian. That then gets a better stuffed brain, some better body definition, becomes kind of like a reptile. Then that becomes like a little. These drawings suck, guys. Okay, and this is something.
That's a fish.
That looks like a cat.
These are all really bad, but you see what I'm getting at. Kind of as an organism, as a mammalian embryo, a cat fetus, pig fetus, sheep fetus, as it progresses, it goes through these stages that kind of match the stages of development of the higher animals, right? They're all vertebrates. The little thing gets a spine first. And then as it develops, it gets the traits of different and more of these. Never gets to bird, because birds are an offshoot from reptiles. Both mammals and birds are an offshoot of reptiles. Does any of this make one lick of sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay, and I want you to know, this is probably the thing that gets the most, what I had called earlier, consternation. And that's fine. And there is evidence that supports this. And like I said before, the evidence does not have to be contrary to any belief system that anyone has. If it is, that's fine. Reject this, right? If you don't like this evidence for whatever reason, reject it and move on. But the evidence suggests that this is true. And that all life is related. And to me, that's beautiful. To me, it's beautiful that all life is related. To me, it is, that's more evidence of some majestic design than if this weren't true. Do you have questions about this?
No.
Okay, well, I wish you did have at least one question, but bye.